Hi everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Allotment Days. It's a little bit cold and a little bit damp outside, although they'd forecast a nice sunny day. So I've decided to take the plunge and sow some tomatoes. This is what used to be the dining part of our kitchen. You can see on the floor there just a few seed potatoes. I've planted about 20 or so 30 litre pots with potatoes already. Just the first earlies and second earlies. And most of these will go into the ground on the allotment. They're developing some nice chits, as you can see. Got quite a good mixture of first and second earlies and main crop. The main crop I'm growing Picasso, which seems to be an allotment favourite. I spoke to several guys on the allotments and they swear by that. It's an all-rounder. King Edward, it's a nice potato as well, quite a sweet tasting potato. And of course the one and only Sarpomera. I've grown that the last couple of years as well, and that's as everybody knows now, it's prolific. It produces loads of great potatoes, and they've got a really good dormancy rate, if that's what you call it. They keep really well, they store really well, and we've just finished eating our Sarpomeras from last year. Tomatoes, well, some people say a tomato's a tomato, don't they? You know, like there's no difference. But the reality for anybody that grows them is it really is quite different. There are over 7,000 varieties in the world being grown, many more wild ones, probably some still to be discovered. And these are most of the seeds that I've got that are still in date. I have got more, believe it or not. But these are the ones that I've grown in the last year or so, or that I'm going to plant in this coming year. I'm not going to grow them all. There are probably, I don't know, about 45 packets there, different varieties, and I'm going to grow about 20. And I'll show you the ones that I plan to sow. Nothing else for it, but to give you an aerial view of the table. I hope the neighbours are not watching because I'm standing on a chair. Tomatoes, forgetting about the different growth habits of tomatoes, are divided pretty much into 4 different groups, aren't they? You've got your beefsteak on the left, you can see I've grouped them. Then you've got your cherries, then you've got what you call your globe or standard tomatoes, and then you've got your bush tomatoes. They're the ones that we most commonly presented within the garden centres. You can see I've got more beefsteak varieties and more cherry varieties, and that's because they're the varieties that I really prefer to grow. Cherries are fantastic, super sweet. Beefsteak are great as well for sandwiches and for making sauces. And that's primarily where I'm growing my tomatoes for this year. The big greenhouse on the allotment, I'm going to grow nothing but beefsteak tomatoes, and then at the end of the year I'm hoping to be able to make lots of passata or tomato sauce that I'll store and keep right through the year. It's quite expensive to buy, and a lot of the beefsteak varieties are heritage or open pollinated varieties, and that means you don't need to keep buying them. So whilst some of these you can see I've bought, you can see at the bottom in the envelopes I've started to collect my own seed, and I'll continue to do that. So I reach a point where I might have 20 open pollinated varieties and just 1 or 2 F1 hybrids. It has to be said there are some really tasty and reliable F1s. The cherries, you eat those off the bush, off the plant, and we put them in lunch boxes for work. My wife and I both take sandwiches to work. Youngest daughter's still at college, she has a lunchbox as well. The standard tomatoes, a lot of people are die-hard tomato growers. They'll just grow the same things year in, year out. Moneymaker or Shirley, that kind of variety. And each to their own. If that's what you like, that's fine. I think they're a bit fiddly, to be honest. You end up cutting the top and the bottom off. They slip off your sandwich, don't they? And I guess the association for me is with supermarket tomatoes. And if you've had an average season and if you've grown them outside and they're not very tasty, you think, oh well, what were the point of growing them? But you can grow some really lovely standard tomatoes. Again, there are lots of open pollinated varieties like Harbinger. They're fantastic varieties. The bush tomatoes, well, they're ideal if you're growing tomatoes in pots on a patio. But I've learned, sadly from experience, that it's a bit of a dangerous occupation. I had a couple of years where they did really well outside in pots. I've been growing them about 8 years now, tomatoes. The first couple of years they were really nice, and then I had 2 or 3 seasons where they were just absolutely decimated. They were full of promise, covered in tomatoes, really excited about them. And then within about 3 days, the black spots appeared, went on the leaves. You tried to cut bits out, and I just ended up, hacking all of the plants away, hoping to stop the spread of the blight. Hopeless, really. I lost them all for a couple of years. Then I decided I'd just got to invest in a greenhouse. And you soon realise, even with a small greenhouse, that you've not got enough space. So I've got 2 greenhouses at home now. And then the obsession spilled onto the allotment, and I've got 2 there. But I'll be growing aubergines and cucumbers on the allotment as well. So that's a quick look at the different sort of groupings of tomatoes. I've described them in that way because you do get 2 main sort of growth habits. You get indeterminate or cordon varieties and determinate varieties. But a determinate variety, one that is like a bush in its growth habit, you can actually have them with beefsteaks, with cherries, with tomatoes that are close to standard tomatoes in size. So they've been bred that way and crossed and hybridised, and you can get pretty much whatever you want on a cordon or on a bush. So, but the advantage of bush tomatoes is that you need to do very little to them. If you get a good mix in your soil and you water them regularly, there's no side shooting, no pruning. Every branch will terminate with a truss, and it's a doddle really if you just want a low maintenance tomato plant. So we'll take a look now at the ones that I'm going to grow this year.